Hello, everyone. I'm John Newstreet, President and CEO of the Kissimmee Osceola County Chamber of Commerce with our weekly webinar series. As a reminder, the Chamber are champions for business and community. And so as we've worked through this pandemic together, we've taken on different topics in this series. And we're delighted to have a special guest today to talk about things that are happening at the federal level. And so joining me to interview this guest and talk with this guest is my 2020 board chair, Adrianna Sekula.
Hi, thank you so much, John, and thank you, Congressman, for joining us. I'm Adrianna Sekula, Chairman of the Kissimmee Osceola Board of Directors for 2020, and we welcome all of you to this today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So Adrianna is also on the team of government relations over at Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, and so we're excited to talk more with the Congressman. He has a recent victory that I know Adrianna will discuss with him. As a quick intro bio for the Congressman, we'll have the full one in the Facebook thread, but he was first elected to Congress in 2016, and he serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Natural Resources Committee, as well as various subcommittees, and is involved in various caucuses as well. So a true leader in Congress representing us here down in Osceola County. We appreciate you taking the time in your busy schedule. And that leads me to the first question here in our 15-minute time frame. What is your top priority at this time in Congress, personally?
So normally I would say it's higher paying jobs because that's the biggest struggle of our region, and long term that still is, whether it's working on bridge or commercial space flight or simulation and training, computer programming, biotech at Lake Nona. Those are all really important things. But right now we're in a pandemic. And so my main priority right now is recovering both health-wise and economically from the pandemic. And Congress has come together for 4 major bills so far, including the historic CARES Act that provided billions of dollars to help with everything from Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses and a $500 billion large business loan fund to helping out with unemployment and stimulus checks. And of course, we focus and continue to focus on both making sure we're getting enough funding for testing and for tracing. So for right now, we're in a crisis. So my main priority would be to help us get out of that health and economic crisis.
Thank you, Congressman. Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a little bit of other work being done. Recently, you had a big win in the House with a bill to recognize Pulse as a national memorial. So on behalf of Disney and personally, thank you for the work that you did in Congress and in DC on behalf of Orlando and the One Pulse Foundation. Happy to have you speak on that a little bit, and then also ask you, from a business perspective, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic. What is the latest on issues and legislation that are impacting business? I know you spoke about the CARES Act, but good or bad, is there any other legislation that's being pushed through, positive or negative, in Congress right now?
This past Friday, we passed out the bill to recognize the Pulse National Memorial. We all know what happened 4 years ago, and it still is a frightening tragedy that we all can recall where we were at and those we knew who were affected and those we may have lost. And what's really important to know is across the country, there were vigils. In fact, across the nation and the world. So this was truly a national tragedy. And that was something that became more evident as we had our committee hearing on that literally almost every member had a vigil in their district about this. So Democrats and Republicans came together in the House, passed by voice vote. That just means both the parties agree, and we voted yes vocally, but didn't have a roll call vote. Now it heads to the Senate. Obviously, a huge bill to help recognize this tragedy that I got to introduce with Congresswoman Val Demings and Congresswoman Murphy. And so obviously we're doing our best to honor those 49 angels we lost and 53 injured. And of course, going forward, the House has already passed out the HEROES Act, which we know that our state already can face a $10+ billion budget gap for this year. We have a balanced budget amendment, so that could mean devastating cuts. And then next year they could face another. That's why the National Governors Association, made up of all governors across the nation, thought we would need about $500 billion to stabilize budgets over the next 2 years to make sure that cops, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and other important civil servants stay on the job. And our League of Cities and League of Counties also had asked, again, a bipartisan or rather nonpartisan organization, that we need another $500 billion to be able to stabilize all these budgets. And think about all those vendors who are members of the chamber who work with local governments too. So it goes far and wide. And of course, had major provisions about re-upping unemployment, about more funding for testing. It had a huge affordable housing assistance piece. We know we saw a disaster in the Great Recession with our real estate values dropping nearly in half, and our construction industry came to a halt. Realtors and mortgage brokers were out of work, and so many seniors who had saved up and had that house that they wanted to sell, their nest egg was reduced in half. So that housing assistance is going to be really important as well. Now that goes to the Senate, and we've seen at first the Senate take kind of a harsh view and saying that states should go bankrupt. Now they're saying they'd consider a $1 trillion recovery package. And President Trump's advisors have said they've looked at a $2 trillion package and are interested in infrastructure. So we don't need to hear that twice in the House. We are going to roll out and vote on out of the House a infrastructure package that will have both for transportation, like highways and roads and bridges, but also ports and airports, also rural broadband, and upgrading our grid. We were fortunate enough to have Chairman DeFazio of the Transportation Committee come to Central Florida at my invitation, and it was hosted at Disney. Thank you for doing that. And obviously, our theme parks have a huge interest in making sure we keep that infrastructure up to snuff so that tourists can have a great experience. And of course, this is also about the good folks of Osceola County, many of whom commute to Orlando or other areas. And when we talk about what I hear the most, I hear about higher paying jobs, I hear about fix the traffic, and I hear about affordable housing. So this is part of our long-term goal to help fix the traffic. This would give us a better opportunity to get beyond I-4 Ultimate into the budget and be able to actually get that going. That would be from 535 to 27, a game changer for both Osceola County and our theme parks. And we'd also look to expand Sunrail out into Polk County because it stops right now at Point Siena. So there's a bunch of opportunities we can see. But I think we may see a package sometime in July pass based upon the most recent statements by the White House and by the Senate.
Outstanding. The final of the three questions that we'd like to approach, you've kind of touched on a lot of the infrastructure needs and the high wage jobs needs and all the things that we face together here in Osceola County. So as you represent Osceola County in Congress, and we are quite familiar with politics and how Congress operates, what would you consider to be some of the greatest challenges that you're facing in trying to resolve these issues? And I asked this question mainly to see, can the Chamber be a partner? Is there anything we can do to help support you in getting these things resolved?
Sure. I think the main challenge has been to make sure to find the common ground and step together as the Congress to respond to both the health and economic crisis. But I want people to take some solace in the fact that we've passed 4 packages already. Most of them passed nearly unanimously. And a lot of this has been a huge help for small businesses, many of whom are your members. You look at the 230,000 businesses that got paycheck protection loans totaling $30 billion. And the fact that they had to use most of it to keep people on the job, that is literally hundreds of thousands of Floridians that still have their jobs. So business plays an important role in talking about how important, if we need to continue the Paycheck Protection Program, how important that program is, continuing to talk about how critical infrastructure is. We keep growing and growing. Our region will grow 20%. Percentage-wise, that's higher than any other region from 2010 to 2020. And I represent a district that's the 5th most populous in the nation. 900,000 plus people live in Florida's 9th congressional district. So we know infrastructure is of desperate need. And so talking about those things, particularly with our senators as they're figuring out whether they're going to go with the current position, which is there'll be $1 trillion package that'll just focus on relief, versus the White House position that they may go as high as $2 trillion and include infrastructure. The chamber could play a big role. I know both of our senators have worked very closely with the business community, and so that could be a big role because we desperately need to continue to forge new infrastructure in Central Florida. And then also another key is when we're talking about technology like bridge, continuing to make sure our senators are engaged. We work pretty closely with Senator Rubio on a lot of those issues, but making sure both of them are on board with making sure they're getting line items in the budget. And then spaceflight. That is going to be the probably biggest shift, the biggest increase of any business sector in Central Florida, non-tourism related. Of course, that's of course our biggest industry, and we certainly want to stand by you all and help make sure you all are getting helped as well. But that's going to grow. We'll see the space industry grow probably double this decade we saw in the last 2 decades. And I do want to end with making sure that we are helping out all of our tourism industry around Central Florida. We know that's going to be one of the hardest hit, continue to be hardest hit just by the nature of it being a pandemic. The last recession, it was more about toxic investments. And so it decimated a real estate market, particularly direct. While here, we have a lot of folks who are just slowly starting to determine whether they're going to go out to restaurants or to theme parks or go on vacation. And so we know we have a long-term commitment we need to make that could go beyond whatever package we pass to the next year or so. So that's a commitment we continue to make and obviously meet with our colleagues on the federal level from both Disney, Universal, SeaWorld, and our other Legoland or other major parks. And we have allies. Whether it's Las Vegas, who are normally that's our competition, but New York, LA, Chicago, big places that Louisiana that have a lot of tourism. A lot of those members are really honed in on that. So that'll be one thing that those are also things that you all can help out with, making sure we're funding space, we're funding bridge, and we have a long-term help for our tourism industry, because it could be a 1 to 2 year deal. In the last pandemic, it lasted up to 3 years. Well, I think we'll do better than that. We just need to understand that could be the worst case scenario, and we want to make sure that we're keeping our economy running.
Well, with all that you've said, I mentioned our mission statements to be champions for business and community, and you certainly are a champion for us, and we thank you for that. We're at the 15-minute mark here for the most part, so I'll just offer it back to Adrianna for any follow-up, and then we'll have a closing statement from you, Congressman, before we say goodbye. Adrianna?
Yes, Congressman, thank you again for your leadership in DC, for your partnership with the Chamber and your community, and for your friendship to everyone that you come in contact with. We appreciate you. We thank you for helping everything from small businesses to the bigger tourism industry in your district. Thank you so much, and we appreciate the time that you gave us today.
My honor. I call proudly Kissimmee, Florida, my home. I think we figured out that I'm the first congressman to ever live in Osceola County. What a beautiful and growing community. And this is a two-way conversation. We identified some key areas today, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's paycheck protection program relief, whether it is longer-term relief for our tourism industry, which is going to be particularly hard hit by the pandemic, or whether it's emerging industries like sensors and microelectronics at Bridge, or the many folks who call Osceola home, literally rocket scientists that drive into the Cape every morning for commercial space, and of course biotech at Lake Nona as well, which also provides a lot of jobs to Osceola County. We know where the job growth is. We just need to work together over the years to make sure the infrastructure, the programs, the support from the federal budget is there to keep Osceola's economy moving forward. So thanks everybody for having me.
Well, we again appreciate you, and we're willing to work and excited to work with you to solve some of the problems that we all face here. So thank you again for taking the time and for your leadership up in Washington. And I'm sure we'll be talking again. There's so much to talk about. We could talk a long time with you. So we will follow up and have another conversation in not too distant future. But thank you for today, and thank you for all you're doing.
My honor. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.